What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Fresh Podcast, where we bring everything fresh in entertainment. I am your host, Drew Brumfield, and joining with me today is everyone's favorite, I already messed it up, Randy. Just keep going.
Yeah, I'm your favorite Randy.
Everybody's
Everyone's favorite
Randy.
Randy.
Yep.
I am
Randy,
Exactly.
did you ever watch the Julian Smith musical? I'd rather
Shut
eat Randy.
the fuck up.
Why does that not come up? That needs to come up more often in our conversation.
No, it doesn't.
And that video is like 10 years old now.
Oh, it's great. That's what the next
I can
podcast is
only
going to be about,
imagine
that
how-
video. Also,
We're gonna
joining
rank
us-
all the Julian Smith musical stuff.
Yes, but that one's going to be number one because it's Randy. Anyway, also joining with us is Seth. How you doing?
I'm doing all right. Hello.
Great
Welcome.
to hear. Oh god, I want to see that video again. Anyway, we are here talking about Terminators. Yes, so Netflix recently came out with a new anime about the Terminator franchise, and I was like, this is pretty good. And I thought about it for 2 seconds. And I'm like, I don't actually want to talk about this thing. Not that it's bad, but I just really want to talk about T2. Terminator 2 Judgment Day. So we're doing that instead. Yeah, this movie's sick. Easily James Cameron's best work, in my opinion. And I am not the first one to say this. Obviously, it is incredibly loved and incredibly well received. At the time of making it, I believe, if I go through a million notes here, it was at the time it was the most expensive movie ever made. I think the thing is, like, the opening sequence alone is the exact same budget as the entire first movie. So really big, like, push into this, but in my opinion, I think it was well worth and quite well done. So we'll get through specifics, but just kind of immediate general thoughts when I say Terminator 2, what do you think of? What are your guys' thoughts on? I think both of you, this is a rewatch for this movie. So Seth, yeah, what are your thoughts on the rewatch?
I liked it. I remember liking it a lot when I first watched it when I was younger, and I mean, it still holds up dramatically well, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
I think in terms of like effects too, both in terms of practical and the CGI, I think holds up really well. I know like some of the stuff with like the T1000's liquid metal might look aged now, but I think there's a particular charm that I'll get into later about it. But it's just like a solid movie all around. I think it logically builds upon the first film, which was more of like a slasher film than anything else. And then this one is a full-on just embracing sci-fi action. And I think where it kind of takes Sarah Connor, who is the only surviving character from the first film, kind of where it takes her story, where they decide to do things with like T-800 coming back and just the world in general is very fun. I personally like this movie quite a bit. I would need to watch the first Terminator to decide if this is my favorite of the Terminator films, but also I'll say this is probably where, for all intents and purposes, the Terminator franchise ends here for me personally. So that's what I have to say.
That's fair. Randy, what are your thoughts on a rewatch?
That's all I have.
Okay.
But no.
And that's the end
in
of
reality,
Randy, so
though,
it's just me and Seth for the rest of this podcast. No, I'm joking.
It is
in
a
reality,
great
though,
score.
It's a great score.
It is. I didn't think I would like how much they did with Sarah Connor's story. I thought it was kind of just gonna be like, yeah, whatever. It's whatever. I'm really just here for the action. But overall, I really enjoyed like her determination about like I have to solve this, and I'm sure we'll get into it when we talk about like favorite scenes, and stuff like that. Well, yes, the action was great. The liquid metal of the other Terminator holds up pretty well given the time. I also really enjoyed what they did with Sarah Connor.
Yeah. No, I mean, she's amazing in this movie. And, like, between like the physicality, how much muscle she had to build, and just like that depiction of her. Everyone's trying to make it out like of how she just seems insane and crazy, even though like there's like a good number of sides that like knows she's telling the truth, but are just like, nah, it's just easier to explain she's crazy. Is great, and like a really like great like character moment. I also love when like shit does start hitting the fan, because she's very much like survivalist, like thinks like, oh, I've seen everything. And then, but then when the T-1000 shows up and like the Arnold starts helping her, she's like, "What the fuck is this? What is happening? What is going on?" Like she's freaking out because and I love that. Yeah, the panic and just like
initially initially there is, but then like it really is like 2 minutes later, it's just like, all right, like there's obviously like bigger things to worry about. It's a lot of like what I see from like horror protagonists, which I like, which is just like it's like, I will process the trauma of this later. Right now I need to deal with like the situation. Which is like very neat.
Yeah, Sarah's always been one of my favorite like female characters. Like it's always up in the air whether you count Terminator as horror movies. The first one definitely is, but then after the first one, it's really just action. It never goes back to it. But like Sarah Connor and like Ripley are like some of my favorite female characters because of that. Of just like, yeah, what's happening is like fucked, but we'll deal with this shit later. Like, God, we gotta go. This thing's turning into liquid. Let's move. And it's great, but. Yeah, I have a lot of good things about this, so this will probably be similar to the Godzilla video when Seth would kind of go off on how much he loves that movie. That'll be me this time. I'm just randomly, I'll be like, and this shit's awesome, and just off and off again. Beginning into like the specifics and kind of like going through the movie in order, yeah, it does start with that big, not CGI, because a lot of it's practical. Kind of like a glimpse of like the future and like that like apocalypse scenario. And what I really like about that, and it's not just that, but in a lot of moments in this movie, the use of like those shots there's like no CGI or anything like that. It's all like miniatures in the background and like real people or real sculptures in like the foreground. And it's just forced perspective camera shots. And they do a lot of those to like make things look bigger and smaller. It's a lot of the truck flips you see, that's actually miniatures. A lot of times, chase scenes, especially this is later in the movie, but like during the that like sewer half pipe thing that is in like every movie. Like they're not actually riding. That's just the wall moving past them in a lot of shots. But like. Just watching it, you never see it because a lot of it's really seamless and it looks really good and really impressive. And yeah, just a lot of special effects and a lot of the camera work is very fluid, so it kind of hides a lot of just tricks, so you don't have to use like computers and stuff like that. So getting into and then kind of before like we get into like the main plot, because this film actually gets pretty actiony very quickly. I wanted to talk about one of the things that actually kind of messed the movie up is, so when the first trailer for this film came out, it was a whole thing of just like, this is the Terminator and like this is how it's made and all this, and it kind of kept secret the fact that like Arnold was now a good guy and that the original Terminator is back and helping people. And then the second trailer came out and ruined that and spoiled that whole thing. Kind of just
right.
So it's very hard.
That's why I only ever watch the first trailer for movies I know I'm gonna see anyway.
Yeah, and that just kind of like, I wouldn't say ruined it, because again that happens like pretty early, but like that's kind of like a very dramatic reveal that it's like, oh, he's the good guy now. Like it's a good robot that got sent back, and like this one that just looks like a regular cop is the villain. But
yeah,
I
feel like I remember, like, I don't know if it was that trailer specific, but I remember there's like one clip where it's very funny because it's like showing Arnold like walking out like the elevator with the grenade launcher, and then the trailer goes like, he's back this time for good, and it's like, I like it's very like kind of, I don't know, I like that trailer just because of how goofy it is, but I do agree it's like, I don't know if that was the one that revealed that he was the good guy, but
I
just the
think
term that like he's back for good, and
it's
like
whatever
it
the
can,
one where like that next shot, it's like him and John Connor like high fiving.
Oh yeah,
So I think it is that one where it's just like, well,
you think it is?
yeah, it might be.
It totally. This movie is such like a, in my opinion, I think it's such an interesting atmosphere and like tone to it, because in a lot of ways it does feel kind of like an adventure style film. Like this is like the early 90s, late 80s. So like this kind of feels like, oh, it's an adventure style film where like you got this kid and he's bonding with like a robot, but also like there's a lot of guns and like
Yeah.
cursing and like blood and shit, like getting
Yeah.
people getting blown apart and all that stuff. And it's like it's like I said, it's the tone of it that like really fascinates me in this film.
Yeah, it is kind of like, because the first one is just like straight horror like action where it's just like, we gotta go, we gotta run, we got 15-minute break, we'll have sex and then go, and then we're going, and like there's no like jokes or funny tone. And then in this one, because there's a kid, you, on the surface it does kind of look like more kid friendly, but as you go into it, it's like, no, this is a movie about war and this one lady that's crazy and no one will believe her, and then it turns out she's right, and then the dude's like I vividly remember like as a kid seeing that scene of like Arnold taking his own arm off and just showing all like the blood and stuff around the metallic thing. It was just like, oh, that's disgusting, that's awesome. And it's
Yeah.
so it is a weird balance, but I think that works because like a lot of kids probably around that age were like, oh, this is like the cool and like edgier like one for me. Yeah, I'm gonna watch this one because there are guns and violence and stuff.
Yeah.
Even though, yeah, it does kind of have more like a kid-centric plot. Which I guess.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
I think it's just like and I don't know if it was necessarily like the kid-centric element. It's just, but I guess it is, where it does feel like weirdly like there are definitely like some like the darker stuff and like things for adults, like the cursing and all that. But there is a vibe that I get from this film of just like this is definitely a film I could see where like a family that has more like, let's say, looser attitudes towards like, oh, like I'll let my like basically the families be like, yeah, I know my kid's 10,
Cooler
but I
family.
let them watch R-rated movies. Yeah, they would basically probably look at this film and be like, sure, you know what, little Jimmy, like we can go as a family and go watch this whole thing.
Yeah.
Weirdly enough, it kind of reminds me where whenever I saw Deadpool and Wolverine, like I did see quite a bit of kids in the theater. Like maybe not like young kids, but it was like I would probably say like, they're like young teens,
Yeah.
and it kind of like, and it's such like a like obviously like yes, like it's Deadpool, like probably the youngest of them shouldn't see it, but there's also like kind of room for people like Bella that this is a Marvel movie, they can watch it.
Yeah.
It's not too terrible.
Yeah, this movie definitely, and like that one is like, this is the reason PG-13 wasn't mated for a little bit older. Still, like, not like Game of Thrones level of like violence and nudity and sex and the way people talk. Game of Thrones is a good example of that way, but
And sex on TV.
and sex on TV. But like, it's a good like kind of middle ground. It was like it has a bit of an edgier tone, but it's not like it's not over to a point. I think it's as violent and as like graphic as it needs to be. They do actually get away with a lot of like F-bombs and curse words and swearing a lot for a movie like this. I'm kind of surprised by that. Like,
Really? I mean, it's still R-rated.
Yeah. Oh, I don't know why I thought it was PG-13. Oh, well, actually, it might have been before. Was this before?
No,
Temple of
this was around the. No, yeah, this
Still
is
are.
absolutely
Yeah.
yeah, this is absolutely after, because this is 1991. This is absolutely like well after that.
Yeah.
I think it's like I think it's like that right amount of like, ideally if I was an executive and I wanted to make like an R-rated film and make sure that it had like the broadest appeal, where it's like it's like, yes, it's an R-rated movie, but maybe we can like kind of elbow the parents and be like, hey, you can still take your kids to this. It would probably be a film like this.
I think it probably in my mind I thought it was PG-13 because I saw it so much on TV as a kid, like just like screwing through like FX or whatever, and it's on like television, and it's not really changed that much.
Yeah, there's definitely like a version of this where they've edited out most of the F-bombs and stuff like that to make it like safe for TV.
A lot. But yeah, getting on to like bouncing off of like the child focused thing. We'll start with that, who are our main character of John Connor. And I have a little note here. This film does have my favorite depiction of John Connor. Not the kid, but during the flashback when you see that old grizzled dude for like 2 seconds. He got the scar. He doesn't say a word. That guy's cool. I don't want a movie with him because I think that would ruin the image of him in my mind. But I like that you see that like super old and grizzled version. And a little fun fact about him, in the extended edition of this movie, or it might be a deleted scene, there's a scene where you see like the good version of the future, and it's like him in like a little sweater vest pushing his kid, and he doesn't have the scar.
Oh, how nice.
Yeah, he's a little family man. But no, the actual oh yeah,
it's funny because it's like I don't know if this is correct, but I remember asking like Alex of just like, do they have like a different actor for John Connor in every film?
Yes.
Like I think I yeah, okay, because I was definitely like,
so
when I was watching this, like, this is not the same one that like you saw briefly in the first movie.
No, it's not. Every single movie has a different John Connor, and every version of media always has a different version of John Connor. So, fun fact about this, Seth. Do you want the fan theory behind why that is? Is because every film or medium, like game or comic, is like its own essentially timeline. 1 and 2. The idea is they keep going back, and it's such a stupid fucking theory. But the reason he looks different is because it's different sperm. Like, it's from the same guy, but like it's just whatever timeline it is was just a different sperm that meted with the egg, and why he looks the way he does.
You know, I would have been fine with like, oh, it's like the Avengers thing where it's just like, oh, it's like each time something changes, a new timeline branches. I gotta accepted that. I don't know if I needed it's different sperm explanation.
Dude, I remember I read that online and I was like,
that is such like a straight to 100 kind of explanation. Jesus Christ.
This, and I'm like, is this a bit? Am I getting pranked right now? Like, no, this guy's being serious in this writing. He believes it. And he's like, yeah, because like different sperm would have developed different personalities, and that's why they don't talk all the same. I'm like, what the fuck is this? What is this guy on?
It's still Kyle. It's still Kyle Reese. Yeah,
it's still the same guy. It's like it's not a different person.
Wild.
Yeah, that's a fun little theory. But yes, this the actual.
This is what happens whenever you haven't like. This is what happens when you haven't had like a good movie since like in like 30 years. Is it makes a fella act up.
It does. Like, I'm talking about sperm. So in this, John Connor is played by the very young Edward Furlong, who I believe, I don't know if he did anything much after the fact.
I think he was as an adult he became American. He was in American History X, which was
yes, he was
really brutal film. Yeah.
And I think he made like a cameo in Dark Fate or something, and so he's been in other things now. Look at his IMDb, but at the time he wasn't anything. He wasn't even an actor. Like, he wasn't like a kid actor. He hadn't been in other things. It was kind of just James Cameron was just like looking for a kid that like acted like a kid, and you kind of see that through the movie of just like, yeah, he's a bit of like I can't think of a good word to like describe, but like a ruffian, as you would. Yeah, he's a bit on edge. He's kind of
as you would.
But no, I like this, kid, and like this kind of kid who's a bit of like a loose cannon, but then randomly is like, you're going to be the most important person in the world, and like you're telling this to basically an 11-year-old. It's kind of an interesting concept, and like how he has to deal with that. Rady, what are your thoughts on the John Connors of this movie, especially compared to like, the other ones we've seen?
Really like the one. I know the guy's there, and he doesn't have any lines, but like,
that guy's great.
I
love that guy.
I mean, I don't know. He was kind of just like a ruffian, a little rotten kid of the of the 80s.
Yeah.
Like I felt like he played that well, for what it was. And I don't really have much input, to be honest. I mean, he was fine. He acted like a little snot-nosed kid.
Okay, fair enough.
I liked his little redheaded friend who's just like cop. The T-1000 comes up, as a cop. He's like, "You seen this kid?" Nope.
I love that. That kid saved the universe. That little redheaded word saved the universe because he lied to a cop. And that's a message to you kids listening to this podcast. Lie to the police. They're not doing anything for you. You could be saving the universe. But I love that kid. I love that dude. I wish he would come back in future mediums. Just like John's friend that just like instinctively lied to a cop and was just like, "Hey boy, the police are looking for you. Get out of here." That kid's great. That's like my favorite character of the film. But yeah, no, I like this depiction of John. I like the fact that like it's a lot of responsibility and like he's trying to almost just like, oh yeah, fun, a little like robot person. But then Sarah's like, you have to train, you have to save the world now, and that's fun. So moving on, because no one really cares about the kid in this movie. The fun stuff. We get to the point in the film where both Terminators are showing up, and it's that hallway scene where they're both pointing guns, but it's revealed that Arnold's a good guy, and people that didn't see the trailer freak out. People that did don't care. And I love every single fight scene between Arnold and the T-1000. And I have a bunch of notes on the T-1000 because I think, in my opinion, he's what makes the movie so good, is this villain. And I think the liquid metal, Seth, you said look dated. I think it still looks great. I think it looks better than a lot of visual effects today. Especially moments where like the walking through the bar, like the squib that happens when he gets shot and it fooms out.
Well, I mean, like, in terms of like dated, I was saying that like whenever you watch it, it's like you can tell it's like, oh yeah, this is definitely CGI, and this was definitely like sometime in like the 90s or something like that. Like it's a very primitive form, you can tell. But I don't want it to mean that like I thought it was bad. That was definitely not the intention I was trying to come across. What I think of is that I think the CGI, because of its dated elements, and I feel like I get this feeling from watching a lot of older films, it actually kind of adds to this otherworldly, almost alien feeling sense from this thing. When I mean alien, I don't mean like extraterrestrials. I mean just it feels weird, not of this world.
Yeah,
and so in. Like, yeah, and I think I like that like the CGI just kind of makes it, you hear of like the uncanny valley where it's something that's computer generated, like a person, and it looks close to real, but it's not quite, and it creates like a sort of feeling of unease in people. It's called like the uncanny valley. I feel like you get sort of that sense here whenever it's just like, that's not like a human. So like the T-1000, I do think the more dated visuals adds to how strange and how otherworldly this creature is.
Yeah. So a little history behind this technology is this. If you know James Cameron's work, this kind of originally started from The Abyss, where they were doing like it's the water face, and in that movie it doesn't look. It looks good, but that one it's a bit like not the best. Like it's people talking and nothing. But like if you watch that and then go to this, it's like leaps and bounds of like how much they've improved from that first one. The Abyss is also a very interesting movie, not by itself, but just the post production and behind the scenes of that. But that's a different video. And I think also there's only like 42 CGI shots in this entire thing, which is really low for an action movie, and that sounds low when you think about. But the fact that like it's all him, like it's every shot you do remember, like from him walking through the bar. I know I'm skipping around for a minute, but like at the end when they're fighting and he punches them and he like floops the other way, like reverses himself, is sick. And it's a lot of like that kind of stuff. Or like when he like stops the doors and like extends the metal out to hooks and can like open it that way. And it's just like super creative work behind it. Like some of the shots I'm like, yeah, that could do with that, like him like becoming the floor and unbecoming the floor. But it kind of like you add as this like alien, like this does not belong in this world kind of look. But also I do love that moment when they first meet and they turn the corner and just are just unloading into each other, and then at one point they both just start shooting some random dude holding a Pepsi because he just walked down the wrong hallway, and just like don't even stop shooting, just keep going.
Well, actually, watching that scene back, yeah, like I feel like that fucking Pepsi dude kind of just stepped in the middle of it all of a sudden. Like at least it looked like, because he was kind of like from what it appeared, it was like he was hugging sort of the wall at first, and then all of a sudden he just like, oh, I jump in the middle of the hallway and just gets shot the fuck up. And it's like, no.
I also love that, like, I get why the T-1000 doesn't stop shooting, but I love that Arnold, who's supposed to be now our quote-unquote good guy, also doesn't stop shooting. They're just fucking going in on each other.
Does he? Are you sure? I don't know. I feel like when I've watched it, like, doesn't he, like, kind of turn his back and cover John, though?
Yeah,
but he does.
Yeah, I guess that's fair. Yeah. He would have still shot him. That's fair. I guess in my mind, I was just playing him just like, yeah, they just fucking hated that Pepsi guy.
Yeah. Now, to be fair, like, up until a certain point, yes, at this point, it would be believable that T-800 would have, like, shot that dude and not think of anything of it, absolutely, at this point in the film. Because that is a part of his character.
Yeah. He hasn't been told not to kill anyone yet. But I also love how in this movie, like when that's gonna be a sentence you hear a lot. I also love this. That when like these two machine fights, like they're not quipping at each other. They're not making jokes. They're not saying anything. They're just silent killers, just roboting at each other, and that's great. And I just love that's like my favorite thing of just like. I don't care. I have nothing to say to you. You're just in the way. I need to get you out of the way. Like the only
that was kind of like the appeal of like the original too, where anytime like Arnold was like fighting as like the Terminator, because he's a machine, even if he was being hurt, like being blown apart and something like that, his expression never changed. And I think the same thing holds here. It's like even when you have two Terminators just like duking it out with each other, their expressions don't change. They're just like they'll literally like shove like each other's like whole bodies or their head through a wall, and they look and they just face is completely stone cold the whole time, which is like
why'd you need to react? Yeah, I love it. Sorry.
Yeah, and like that's like, and I feel, and I once again, I think that's just like a nice little extra touch to just keep reminding the audience that these are not humans fighting; these are robots. I also like in general with like the Terminator fights, where it's especially when it gets close quarters, it seems like neither of them are very concerned with like trying to avoid taking hits or avoid taking damage. Like it really is just like two guys just kind of like just beating the ever living shit out of each other.
Yeah. No, the entire movie, Arnold's just getting because like he doesn't heal, quote unquote, like the other one. So he's just like ripped as shit. He's got scars all over his face, and he's just like, "I'm good. Keep going. I don't need it. Let's go." If he loses
Yeah.
a hand, he'll just like cover with a glove or something.
Yeah, it feels like what's interesting, and like I think I've seen other people online talk about it, where it feels like Terminators don't really know how to like fight each other, so they just kind of just brute force it because Terminators are not designed to fight other Terminators.
Yeah.
And obviously like kind of their strength has always been it's just like, well, you know, they could just kind of like tank whatever is thrown at them. They don't really have to like, you know, get out of the way of like most small arms fire that like a lot of the humans are going to be subjecting them to.
Yeah.
Um
It's like why dodge the handgun? What's it gonna do?
yeah, like it's like Superman. It's just like he doesn't need to get out of the way of the bullet. He can just fucking take that shit.
Another fun thing. The only time the two Terminators ever talk to each other is when they're both pretending to be other people. Like they're on the phone and like the T-1000 I think is being is his mom or his dad he's trying to be John's
Mom.
Yeah, it's his mom. Yeah, right, because he does the voice.
Foster mom, yeah.
Yes, foster mom. Yeah.
You're not my real mom.
Yeah, Sarah's the psychopath is real mom. And they're both like talking to each other in like fake voices, and then he just hangs up. Your mother's dead. What?
Your foster parents dead.
Your foster parents are dead. I keep saying mother. That's not his real mom. Your foster parents are dead. But I love that. I
like that part
those
too.
two have such like a rivalry and such like camaraderie against each other. These two robots, but they don't say a word. It's literally just the eyes and like it's basically faceless expression, but you can tell that like they just fucking hate each other.
I you know, you got into that, and I think it's interesting because it's kind of like I think one of the things about this film is like how much of them are quote unquote becoming more human or gaining like a sense of like consciousness or sentience. Because like one thing that I really like is like there's like a lot of like little things that you start to see the T-800 do, like just learning and kind of copying some of the behavior and mannerisms from like John, and he starts to act more human. But it also happens with the T-1000. I mean, I think what makes the T-1000 is a lot of what makes the original Terminator in the first movie so intimidating is that he's just this unrelenting force, complete lack of emotion. But here he is that, but there's these little touches that they do where it's like the mask kind of briefly breaks and there's a little bit of like emotion, just a little bit. I think back to the scene with like him posing as the mom, and then the dad keeps rambling while he's on the phone, and there's like a little bit of look of irritation on her face. I'm putting that in quotes, her face, and she just like impales him through like the milk carton, and then it's just like, I'm working my plan right now. You need to knock this nonsense off, and it happens progressively. Like every time the T-800 kind of like outsmarts the T-1000. Like whenever he's like for example later when they go to Dyson's house and like he's only showing up there after everybody's gone and he hears over the scanner they're already at Cyberdyne. Like I swear, like the way his face sort of slightly clenches up, he's like, ooh, he's really irritated that they got one over him again.
So
and I think that makes sense. Go for it.
I was just about to start just rambling off facts about, because I have like a bunch of facts about the T-1000. So just like real quick, okay, is incredible. And I like moments where because he switches it, he turns it on and off, of like when he's talking to regular people, he is actually kind of like charming and charismatic because like he's an infiltration robot and like that's what he's good at. So like he's talking, it sounds like a regular people. I think he said like, "Hi, man," like when he opens the door, and then immediately when like his back's turned to it, just blank face, it just turns off, and that like amazing acting. At one point when like he's chasing John Connor on the bike, the actual actor, they had to cut from that scene early because the actual actor kept outrunning the bike. Like he was just faster than it. So, and like it would look weird him like purposely slowing down because he was just faster than it.
Right.
A little kind of like this is like lore that the movie doesn't talk about, but like a little in like this is like books and confirm that that model that like that liquid metal like he's one of a kind, and it's kind of up in the air if Skynet really has control over it, because like the whole thing is like yeah he's kind of rogue and he kind of just like does what he wants, and that's why if he wasn't sent in the original because they didn't really know what he was gonna do when they sent him back, and like what does that creature look like after like evolving for thousands of years in the past. But it was kind of the thing was like at this point in the war Skynet's losing, and so that it's kind of like their latchstick effort of just like fucking just send him off and just see what happens. And then in the so you talk about him showing more emotion as well. There's more of that in the extended edition because there's kind of a lot of scenes of him like malfunctioning are in that extended edition. And I think the reason it cut out is because it didn't look as good as the rest of the film. Like it was kind of not unfinished, but like a bit more messed up. And you see him like there's one scene where at the very end where he's walking, he puts his hand on a guardrail and gets stuck because like his hand accidentally meshes with it and like becomes it, and he has to like take it off and wipe his hand to get it back. And there's a lot of that of he's like malfunctioning, and well it's not like Arnold the way he deteriorates throughout the course of the film of losing body parts, but like you can see him kind of lose his original programming and just become less and less robot at the end.
That's really cool. I like that.
Yeah, the T-1000 like makes this movie for me. It's such a good villain. It's like he's like ever present force. Every scene that he's in is like incredible and so enjoyable to watch, from that opening action scene where he's just taking hits and flooping them back. When he like opens the elevator with those like sword arms, and at one point he does this a couple times. What has only been described to me as turning his way into a room where he just kind of becomes the ball of metal, just like someone just shit him on the floor and then reforms back.
No, that's Bethany definitely made that description. Like she'd never seen Terminator ever all before. It's like, ooh, the dude is just a giant silver turd in the elevator. It's just like, yep.
Yep, he is. It's great. I love him. Like that's like by far like the coolest part of this movie is that creature and that like his whole character. I loved it, and you know, shout outs to Robert Patrick, who's just phenomenal in it.
My favorite thing about Robert Patrick also just is that like it seems like he's always down to make little cameos as this character outside of like Terminator. My favorite bit is from Wayne's World when I was like, I had to check to make sure. Just like that was Robert Patrick, right? It's like, yeah, like Wayne's World has a gag where they get pulled over, and it's Robert Patrick as like a motorcycle cop, and they're like freak out, and it's I think they play a little bit of the Terminator theme too, just like a little bit, and it's just like it's like oh no, it's him. I think if I remember correctly, Robert Patrick like actually helps them out to like he's like, oh, I'll like accompany you guys so you can get where you need to go faster.
Yeah.
But yeah, like it seems like the dude is always down to reprise his role as that and just have fun with it, which is great. It's just nice to see someone just like in general. I feel like I feel like this film, you know, I don't know if you mentioned, yeah, you might have mentioned that like The Abyss might have been like this, you know, pun intended, abysmal production where like a lot of people hate each other by the end of it because James Cameron damn near killed all of his crew.
This
but
was James
I
Cameron
feel
who
like
was going through a divorce. Now this is married James Cameron on this one,
and
so
I
it's
think
better.
The general vibe I get from this film is that I think what helps add to how fun it is like it feels like everyone is just kind of having like a good time with like making it. I think we talked about this a long time ago when we were talking about the John Wick movies, where part of the fun of those movies is you do maybe it's because of all the behind the scenes stuff, but like you do see you do see like a lot of like the actors and the crew all interacting and all like having fun with like just being a part of this product and like making it happen. Like I saw some behind the scenes stuff where like the honestly it's so endearing to see like the behind the scenes stuff with Linda Hamilton and Arnold like just interacting with each other. There's stuff where like Arnold is like since Linda's put on muscle, he's like, let me teach you how to flex. So like this is behind the scenes stuff where he's like showing off and it's just like, now you show off your muscles. And then one I liked is it's when they're filming the hospital scene and they're in the elevator. Like I think there's some downtime and she's just like, should I she's like, are you gonna say I'm back? And he just like kind of like snickers back at her. It's like, that's fucking fun. Like you just get the sense that everybody was having a good time with this movie. Yeah.
But yeah, going on to, so we've kind of already talked about a lot of the other main characters. We'll let's probably talk more about Arnold a little bit. But the last kind of like big part of this, and we've already talked about it a little bit, is Sarah Connor and like, you know, her whole like journey about. And Randy, kind of tell me about what fascinated you about her character. You know, why was she so like appealing to you, or wasn't? You could have been lying earlier in the podcast.
Yeah, totally. No.
Yeah.
So what I found appealing to her is that, and I don't know if this is common amongst other like horror film like sequels and stuff like that. I know there was the topic of like the final girl and stuff. That's kind of a, you know, repeating like element of horror films and stuff. So I think it'd be appropriate to say she was the final girl of T1.
She fits the cat again. T1 is very different from all the other Terminators because T1 is the only horror movie. Everything else becomes straight action. So yes, she is a final girl.
Yeah, but seeing her deal with, not just be like, well, so that's done. I'm now just like super strong and like amazing now and like know everything or something like that. Turning her into some sort of like Mary Sue instantly, but having her deal with this trauma of this futuristic robot that then got covered up, and having her try and convince these people that it's really a thing, and like there's still more work that like she needs to do to like protect her son and stuff like that. I felt it was compelling, and then also for her to almost go through so much of that pressure to where like once she is free, she has that nightmare sequence about the world ending, and she's holding onto that fence.
Yeah,
that's a real strong fence. But anyway,
it made a good shot.
But having her go, yeah, it did make a very good shot.
Yeah.
Having her go through all that to then end up at what's going to be like pretty much the inventor of like this major breakthrough for the chip development that creates
Skynet.
Skynet. I wanted to say CyberArk for some reason. Skynet was like for her to pretty much show up and basically act like a Terminator herself. And I don't know if they do it. Like, do they play a hint of like the Terminator sound behind her when she?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, they absolutely are playing some of that theme.
Yeah, I was just like, this is good shit. Mm-hmm. I like this. And having her kind of develop and been like, I don't know, be like horrified with herself about that, but also like, she was like, I'm determined, I'm gonna do this. Then when the time comes to it, she's like, I can't, but also like, I need to. But luckily, John and the Terminator, T-800 show up, like, pretty much in time to be like, I mean, she was already having a mental breakdown at this point, but like, to make sure she doesn't do something like, regrettable. And I really enjoyed that, how she kind of moved on from like, this is the only one solution is we have to destroy everything. I have to kill this guy, to wait, we can change the future without having to ruin this guy's, like, I say ruin this guy's life. He does die anyway, but that wasn't part of the plan.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They did.
Well, like, yeah. I think I like a lot of that point you brought up, and I think like they managed to find a way to go through essentially kind of like her original plan of like scrapping all of the evidence of the Terminator before, so that like potentially Skynet doesn't happen. They managed to find a way to do that plan without sacrificing her what's left of her humanity. And I think that's like kind of like like you see that kind of like message sort of also being applied to the T-800. Like there's a way that you can do your job without, well, he, with, in a sense, like he becomes more human by the end of the film, but you get what I mean, where like there's a way of doing this without having to like compromise your morals.
Yeah. Also, just a quick shout out, because like now we're talking about that same amazing work by Joe Morton, who plays it's Miles Bennett, I think is his name in the film, but like
Dyson last name.
Dyson.
Miles Dyson, yeah.
Yeah, Dyson, excuse me. Who plays that? Great job. That one scene where like he's holding the bomb or like whatever, and he goes like just breathing super heavily. I was like, that was like, I remember like that was like one of the most memorable scenes like for me as a kid. Just like the fear and panic in this man's eyes for what he's about to do, was just like A plus work. Like there's a lot of like really like heavy hitters in this movie. A lot of people that do like amazing things. I feel like he kind of gets forgotten about. So kind of going around, because we're not really going in a specific order. Want to talk about a lot of the different like action scenes during this, and I already talked a little bit about how like a lot of it's practical effects, because back in the day, like, yeah, that wasn't CGI. They flipped a real truck a couple of times, and it's great. And so I want to ask you guys, like, whether it's, the beginning chase scene or the middle kind of area where it's like, he's fighting police, or the big final fight, like which moment stood out, or I guess which kind of big scene stood out most to you guys? Neither of you guys can answer this. Whoever wants to go first.
I think in terms of like story, my favorite scene is whenever they're at Cyberdyne, and then like the police force arrives, and then the T-800 has to go out and deal with them, and then like the T-800's like, I'm gonna go deal with them, and then John's like, wait, you promised you wouldn't kill them, and he just like looks back and just says, I think if I remember correctly, he smiles. He's like, trust me. Yeah. I really like there's something about me where I really like that they are able to have a really kick-ass action sequence where the main character doesn't have to kill anyone. Yeah. There's something about that really sticks with me, and I always like that. It's like this old discussion I had with you of like why I failed to be impressed with the warehouse scene in Batman versus Superman. Is I always point towards the Dark Knight, where there's the scene with like Christian Bale's Batman is taking out it's the hostage switcheroo, where like hostages are the goons are the hostages situation, and he's dealing with SWAT, and he's able to execute a plan and save everyone's life without like losing his sense of morals. I get this sort of similar vibe here, where basically the Terminator finds a way to complete his mission without having to like use lethal options.
Yeah.
I really like that. So that's my personal favorite scene, just from like a storytelling perspective, like just really well done.
No, definitely.
My other,
before we move
away
from that scene, I also love that scene just because of like, first off, it's it's super fun that like it's such an iconic image of like him with that minigun just like mowing down police cars, and the fact that like no one dies from that. Well, a little unbelievable, but still fun. It doesn't ruin it. Yeah, it's still such a fun scene. I also love the next moment after that, where he goes downstairs and the entire team is like unloading into him, and he just takes it, and then as they're reloading, he just takes a gun and just kneecaps everyone.
Yeah, that's
that moment's so funny to me.
And I love that scene, and this is just like a personal thing. When he's kneecapping everyone, I actually remember whenever I was playing, because that scene came to mind when I was playing Metal Gear Solid 5. Because in Metal Gear Solid 5, they kind of gauge you on like your performance of how you do things, you get caught and stuff like that. And I was playing through it at this one mission where I had to extract a person, and the base is on high alert, and I need to get this person out. And it's like, shit, I've already gone through this mostly non-lethal, but I'm out of tranquilizer rounds. What do I do? And then I thought, like, I asked myself, could the game really let me do this? So I picked up one of the enemy rifles, and I basically started fighting my way through the base, just kneecapping enemies. And I was able, and by doing that without executing any of them and just kneecapping them and extracting out of there, I was able to complete the mission without killing anyone. And all I was thinking is like, well, Arnold did this, maybe I can too. I really like that scene too. It's just him just even when he does it the first time, it's also very funny where it's like it's almost like he's a little aggravated with him at like the checkpoints. Like, remember, no killing. It's like, okay, and he just goes up and shoots the guy, and he's just like, you'll live. It's just like
I lost it at that. I forgot that for some reason John goes like, you can't kill anyone, and then like he's like, I swear I won't kill anyone. Kneecaps.
Bang, 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 fuck. Jesus.
I lost it.
I don't
Hey, you'll live.
My favorite thing about all of that too is just like, what does tomorrow look like for any of those guys? Like, they all have to go back to their captain. The captain's like, did you miss? Like, were you trying to shoot? You missed? Like, no, we were hitting him. Everyone was hitting him. And then he's like, but everyone's okay and accounted for. It's like, yes, but we're all out basically for the rest of our careers because none of us can walk straight anymore. We all have bullets in our legs. And he's just like, what the fuck? How do you explain that to someone? And there's also that one dude that just like gets his spine fucked up because he shoots a grenade launcher right at his back. And I know it's tear gas, but fuck, that hurt. That must have hurt.
Oh yeah.
This scene's great. This scene's beautiful.
But yeah, like in terms of storytelling, that is like my favorite. That's probably my favorite sequence from the movie in terms of action. But in terms of the actual action itself, probably my favorite one is the immediately after with the chase on the highway, in particular the helicopter sequence. And it really is just because I had completely forgotten this happened. I was like, oh shit, this is amazing. It's just them having the helicopter on the highway, like just like following this truck around.
Yeah,
it's
like
just
when it goes under the bridge, dude.
Yeah,
I was like,
yeah, the part where it goes under the bridge, I was literally like I was like screaming. I was like, no fucking way, dude, that's insane. And so I did like look up a little bit into it, and apparently, yeah, like that was legit. The pilot actually did go under it. Even I think James Cameron was like about to back out of the idea until the pilot assured him like, I can do this. I can definitely pull this off. Which man, the balls of that pilot to do something like that is insane.
Awesome.
So
Pilot's
yeah,
badass.
but like that for me personally, that was like my favorite action sequence was the highway chase scene, just because of like knowing that these are, and I mean, I know that some of the parts with like the crashes stuff do use models, but knowing that largely this is like real people in real vehicles doing these real stunts is like insane to me.
Yeah. So fun little fact about that scene is during the plane like the helicopter sequence. They don't point it out and they don't draw attention to it, but if you're paying attention and like looking at the T-1000 on those scenes, he has 3 arms. He has 2 arms, like, because he's 2 arms piloting thing and then a third one like shooting. And if you go back and look at the scene, there's even a moment where he's reloading the gun with 2 hands, and then you look down, there's a third arm coming out of his stomach, like holding the joystick for the helicopter. So like he used his metal to grow a third arm to like do this, and that's so cool to me that it's like in every other movie like they would make like a big deal about that and like show him growing another limb to like show, but in this movie it's like Yeah, if you like watch it a million times, you'll see it, or just like maybe you won't. Who cares? Because like how else would he fly it? I love that. Randy.
Yeah, no, that is like a really neat attention to detail.
Yeah, Randy. Um, did you have a favorite
I
kind
mean,
of big action scene?
I really enjoyed like the bike chase. I know like a
Yeah.
lot of people choose that, but
It's a good
I
scene. There's a
mean,
reason.
it's a good scene.
Yeah.
Also, just dude, something about Arnold doing that like flip reload
Mm-hmm.
on
Oh yeah.
the lever
Oh,
action. Dog. Like I was about it. I was like, damn, that's so fucking badass.
it's
It
sick. I'm
is
pretty sure
super
they're
cool.
breaking
Coolest
It,
any
thing
real
ever.
person's hand trying to do that, but it's a robot, so who cares? It's sick.
no, like that scene is iconic with him like reloading it by like spinning it, and it's such an iconic thing that it has now become like, as it plays a lot of FPSs, it's basically become like a staple in every FPS now. Where if there's a lever action shotgun, they always now do the like fucking spin like reload whenever they're like doing the next shot.
I
Um,
forget, does Doom Guy do that in either Doom Eternal or Doom 2016?
Well, I don't
Doom
think
Guy
either.
never gets a lever action.
Yeah.
Yeah, Doom
He
Guy
gets
never gets a
Doom Guys
lever
is a
action
double
Oh yeah,
shotgun.
it's
barrel.
just the
Yeah.
double pump.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Although I would definitely see Doom
I
Guy
bet he'd do it.
absolutely
He'd
doing
do
it.
it.
But no. But like best examples I can think of right at the top of my bat is probably the most famous example is Modern Warfare 2 from 2009 with the lever action model 1887s. It does the flip thing too, and on top of it, you can get the akimbo version where you dual wield, so you can like spin two at the same time, which is
What the
very
fuck? Okay.
funny. Um, Other games like Dusk does it. The modding scene also loves it. One thing I love is I remember uh, Fallout New Vegas has a lever action shotgun, but what was funny is one of the most like downloaded animation mods was a like I think within a year or so of it being released, there was an animation mod that added it to like, okay, the shotgun now flips when you shoot it, because
Hell
people
yeah.
are like, what the fuck? They shipped this game and didn't add that scene. So, in general, it's funny that like, and I do think it has to be maybe not just the film of this era, but like this is weird. Sorry, this is gonna be a weird video game nerd tangent thing. Um, a lot of the arsenal of this movie, and granted, I don't think it has to be just Terminator 2. It could be just a lot of movies around this time in general. A lot of the arsenal of a lot of video games are, I think, inspired by films, and I think Terminator 2 is like one of the most famous. So obviously, it will be. So you see like Colt 1911 pistols. You see that all over the damn movie.
Yeah.
You see the T800 use it. You see Sarah use it. You see like a lot of like Colts. You see a lot of like MP5s whenever like the SWAT team is storming in. Obviously the minigun
I
that's
was
very
saying, yeah,
iconic.
the big. That's kind of what got that and Predator really got the minigun
Yeah,
popular.
the minigun, the break action shotgun, the like armor light rifles.
Doesn't he have? He
Like
has a.
it's
In the end, doesn't he have like a kind of? I forget what it is. It's not. It might be an AK, but like he just has it. Like it's that. It's on the scene, and he uses it to basically unload into the truck.
Yeah,
Oh
that's
yeah,
the
that's
that
dope too.
so that is that is also like a really cool part of the chase scene is where
Yeah.
he just tells John take the wheel, fucking gets, or is it John or Sarah? I can't remember which, but anyways, he
Yeah.
just fucking
Regardless.
gets out of the car, jumps across onto the truck, and just unloads point blank. Yeah, that is an M16 armor light
It's the
rifle.
M16.
Um,
Yes.
Yeah. And it's so funny to me. And granted, the reason why is because if you know anything about like Hollywood production, a lot of times is um, especially during this period of time, a lot of like gun manufacturers would actually contract Hollywood studios, basically be like, hey, if you're going to have a gun, use this as a prop. It's why you'll see a lot of 80s. And I was almost surprised I didn't see it pop up in this movie, the Desert Eagle. The Desert Eagle is whenever you look into it, one of the most impractical guns ever made. It's such a large caliber, and it is barely usable because of like how inaccurate and just unwieldy the damn thing is. But there's so many. Yeah, but it's so many movies. Like I said, I was so surprised that like they didn't have fucking they didn't have they didn't have it in this movie.
Yeah. Because I guess that would be like a big pistol. Like they could do a scene where like big pistol shows up for him. And the first movie does that as well. The first movie also has like a bunch of different weapons that eventually became popular, like the pistol with the red dot on it, and like that like pump action where you do it with a pump action shotgun, and I think another what is it, M9 or M8, whatever.
And also and that one is a 1911 also. It's a modified 1911 with a very old style like laser sight, where like most laser sights now are like much smaller and they fit under the gun. But because that movie came out in 1984, it was a very like the primitive sight. So it's a big hulking mass just attached to the top of the fucking gun. Like that's
fucking most obvious laser pointer in the world, but I love it.
But I think it works because in that first, and sorry to talk about the first movie, but I think it works there because in a weird way, it is a mesh of like science fiction with the modern reality the Terminator finds himself in. Because like adding that like big laser scope makes the gun seem more futuristic, even though he's just using a 1911 with the laser pointer on top. And it's like that kind of adds to the like the meshing of like the future and the past. But anyways, like the one that probably I think that was most present in this film though is the Spaz 12. And like you notice like the cops using it. You notice obviously Sarah Connor using it at the end, especially when she has like the loading rounds on top of it. I just want to point this out. It bothers me though that with the Spaz 12, like if you ever see that shotgun, it has like a big unwieldy top thing to it, and that's because that is the stock that is folded. Most of the time we use the Spaz 12, you're supposed to unfold the stock, but for whatever reason, a lot of people like it looks cooler when it's unfolded. Just leave it. Or sorry, it looks cooler when it's folded. If you don't know what I'm talking about, think back to Jurassic Park, where the guy is slowly unfolding the stock, and then the raptor gets it. He's like, clever girl. That's the shotgun I'm talking about.
No, I know the gun you're talking about. I know it. Yeah. Because it's in everything. And it's always folded every time you use it.
And I hate that. Like I understand aesthetically, for some people, I think it looks cooler when it's unfolded. For some people, it's like it's cooler when it's folded. It's like it looks. To me, I'm like, you're not even using it properly. It looks dumb to me, but that's just me.
I'm gonna be honest. I'm kind of in the other boat. I think it looks cooler folded. Also, the one time we saw someone try to unfold
most
it,
people
he got
would agree
attacked
with
by
you.
a raptor. So
exactly, because he took the longest amount of time. First off, why are you hunting a raptor and then you don't? You know what? We'll just save that for when we talk about
Park.
Yeah.
I think the gun looks cooler folded, but that's just me.
Yeah, no, and I think most people would agree with you. But yeah, like just in general, like, and I understand that like this movie isn't the one that created it, like these tropes. These are obviously like the guns and stuff like that, and like how it's used a lot in movies. This movie didn't create it, but I think it would. Would it be? I don't think it would be too hard to say that like Terminator 2 is definitely like the most popular of like a lot of these films.
It's one of the most quoted and like talked about action movies.
I'd say, yeah, there's so many fucking great lines in this movie.
The fucking Hasta la Vista, baby. Just everything. Like that whole movie could be quoted. I love that.
Your step parents.
Yeah, I only feel like the only other like 90s 80s action film that might be more quoted is probably fucking Aliens, which also directed by James Cameron.
Yeah.
So that tracks.
But even then, like I guess Aliens 2. The first Aliens, not really.
Well,
But
that's what I
definitely
mean, like
2.
Aliens. Yeah,
Yeah, Aliens.
yeah. Like I feel like, yeah, like Game Over Man.
Yeah. Game over, man. Game.
Like that kind of like stuff.
Get your hands off her, you
No, I mean,
bitch.
just I really like how many great lines there are. Like, come with me if you want to live,
Yeah.
you know, and stuff. It's just
It's funny
awesome.
because it's like so much of that was like kind of, memeified and all that, but here it's like and it like, it almost sounds like a joke anytime it's said anywhere else, but I think in the film these are actually really good badass one-liners and stuff like that.
I also think it does work because like a lot of what he says is just like whatever John's saying, so it kind of works. I'm just like, yeah, a kid would say that, but then like when Arnold says it, it's like, oh no, that sounds badass coming from the murder machine. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's sick. No, it's great. But real quick, just because we got off and kind of stopped Randy from that. No, that opening like chase scene.
Motorcycle scene. It's
Yeah,
just
that motorcycle. It's great, and that's a real truck, or yeah, a real truck that they flip in that. Like that's a actual car. When Arnold goes off the edge, that is a stunt double, obviously, and like wire work that they come over. But for the truck, yeah, they just kind of drove it off. Because like, well, how else do you do that? In that
Exactly.
Send it, bro.
Yeah, I love that, and that's why I love like these old action movies because it's like, well, I mean, that's like, hey, we need a scene where we're gonna drive a truck off thing. All right, so we're gonna buy 2 trucks. We're gonna one for the actual scene and one to just break. And that's great. Getting onto it, so this will lead to last one we'll talk about is kind of the final thing because that was the only big set piece we haven't really talked about that. That scene's great, and I kind of love at that point you really see like the T-1000, like as Seth was pointing out earlier, just pissed, just fucking. He's like, I hate everyone in this group, especially this other robot, and he never says a word, but like you just see it in his face of just like how mad he is and just how upset. And I love I love like I know it looks a little. I'll say it looks great. Like when he's like reforming from the metal, you can see the reflection of the fire and stuff coming off. It looks sick. A fun little like practical effect when at one point when like he's covered in like the liquid nitrogen and like is frozen and his like starting to freeze and his arm falls off. That's a real effect, and the way they did that, they just hired a guy. They just hired an amputee. They just hired a guy without an arm. And that's just like a super...
I had a feeling that was like, yeah, I had a feeling that like that whole scene seemed to have been practical. Like I definitely got that feeling from it. So like, yeah, so like that was also like just another really cool like set piece. I really like the frozen nitrogen part. I also like that we've been mostly talking that like most of the emotion that the T-1000 shows is like just being kind of like pissed off most of the time, which is still an emotion. But I think one of the cool things I like is this last sequence is like one of the few times where you see him like seem kind of horrified, and I think it's because it's a character who largely has been invulnerable for the most part, and this is the first time you ever really see him be vulnerable. And I think there's like it's such a shock to the system for him because like all I could think of is when he's frozen nitrogen and he loses versus one of his feet and then one of his hands. If you look at him, he's kind of frozen with his mouth agape. Like, oh my God, like they've actually managed to hurt me, those fuckers.
Yeah, it's like I can't put this back. I can't. Like he doesn't know if he can or not.
Yeah, one of my favorite tropes like in anything is just whenever a villain or something is like have been largely been invulnerable and they're finally faced with like, oh shit, like this is what vulnerability feels like. Oh God,
pain. Oh,
I don't like it.
Sorry, go ahead, Randy.
No, I was mimicking the villain finally becoming vulnerable. I don't like it.
I don't like it.
Yeah.
I also really like the. I already talked about like when they're doing like the bit of a punch up with the 2 robots and he hits him in a wall and then he floop the other way, like reverses himself. That's cool. I love like it's. I know it's like editing a bit choppy, but I love when he takes the rod and like splits him in half, and like that like puppet monstrosity where he's like half like he's got this huge gash on his shoulder. Oh, it's so sick. It's so sick.
It reminds me. It kind of it reminds me of that sequence alone reminded me so much of like The Thing. Whenever he's like split apart and like his mouth is like way too big, and it's like you kind of see him for like the weird monstrosity that he is, like, and the way the head is like crooked. It reminds me so much of like The Thing, and all I could look at Alex is just like, man, I really wish I could just show you The Thing because I think you would love that movie.
All right, you know, a very recent podcast from now, probably in October when it's like horror movie season again. We're doing a Thing podcast because John Carpenter's The Thing.
I would
one
love
of my favorite movies.
I do need to watch it again. The only reason I couldn't, I've like already said, it's just like Alex has a thing where it's really tough for her to watch like dogs being hurt in films, and that movie probably has one of the worst dog scenes in any movie. Period. It's just like so it's like there's no way I could show her that movie without having to skip that scene.
Like, hey, there's this scene. Either walk out during it or like, you know, here's the context around it. He's fine.
Because I completely understand because like even for me it's like that is a tough scene.
That is a tough scene.
Have you seen The Thing, Randy? By the way,
I have not.
Right, man. Randy will be our new eyes when we do that podcast, but that's a future video. Let's not get too far into that. So yeah, because I think kind of the last thing that I'll ask you guys about is, you know, the ending of this of, you know, they beat the bad guy, but also, you know, the bittersweetness of just like, hey, we got to get rid of all Skynet, including my fucked up ass. And like, I love Arnold, and like just the concept is like, even if that wasn't the case, he's like, I am falling apart. I've been getting my shit rocked in this movie. Like, I don't heal like him. And I'm just like, you need to do it. You need to not put me in the liquid. What are your guys' thoughts about the kind of the ending of this? Randy, I haven't heard your voice for a minute now. Randy?
Sorry.
Right.
I was surprised how much I was like I kind of cared just because you know, they did show Arnold getting to, or the T-800 to be more like relatable with
John.
To be with John and stuff. So that was, I don't know, like I was a little sad, and I was like, oh, but at the same time, like, this is the logical choice. You got to do it.
No, that's amazing.
Also, just I know we were talking about fight scenes, and you guys already brought it up, but when she's unloading that shotgun into the T-1000, God, great.
Oh yeah,
that's also right here at the end. So
yeah, no, yeah, we're talking about the end scene. Yeah,
yeah. One thing I want to know about that shotgun loading scene, and I meant to mention the spaz part, is I remember watching it when I was younger, and I was like, oh, it's an interesting way she's pumping the shotgun, just like the one-handed style, but I never thought much of it. It wasn't until I watched it now that I'm older that I'm like, oh, I realize now her other arm was injured. She can't just hold it and pump it. So, like, that's why she's doing it that way, which is really cool.
Also, last thing that I forgot to bring up, since we're still talking about that scene and Sarah, at one point when you see the T-1000 pop around, or another version of Sarah, like pop around the corner, the way you do that effect, they just use her twin. She has a twin sister.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. Linda Hamilton has a twin sister, Lisa Hamilton. And that's actually like how they do all the scenes when the T-1000 does that. Like the guard in the beginning, I forget his name, but it's the same twins that are in the Gremlins movies.
Interesting.
I can't find his name in like the list, but yeah, that's how they do all those. And it's not even like a really effect, but they're just like, yeah, they just have another person that looks exactly like him, so it works.
That honestly is like pretty cool. Because like I thought they would do the thing where like you basically you film it twice.
You film it twice, yeah.
You film it twice and overlay.
But that
yeah, she just has a twin sister. That's how they all were.
How convenient.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
It just made it easier.
No, that is like that is actually like legitimately like really cool. I also like how that scene, weirdly enough, it basically John is saved because because Sarah was a shitty mom, so he kind of knew something wasn't right there.
Yeah,
that's why he was hesitating and just like he's like my mom does not talk to me like this. It's just like, hey, you know what? But Sarah being like kind of a shit mom saved his life here.
So that's a lesson to all the moms out there that are listening to this.
Yep.
Be a bad mother and be a dick to your kid. It'll save them. What were you saying, Randy?
Nothing.
Okay.
Never mind.
But yeah. No, that scene's great. Sarah's great. It's an emotional scene. And then the thumbs up pose. Brilliant movie.
Yeah, iconic. I do want to add, like, just to further add, like, how much I like this scene, and like also like it is a really good emotional scene, and I also like that up until this point, a lot of like everything about the T-800 is following John's orders, and he tells him like to do this and that. But what it's interesting is John is commanding him not to do it, and he still goes through with it. And I think it kind of shows that it shows that at the end, the T-800 does have some level of sentience and consciousness, because it's making this one thing it's doing at the end is a choice that he is making alone for himself. Now, I could see an argument to where there maybe he was always programmed like with like before he was sent back, maybe that John Connor in the future told him like you have to make sure everything goes, including yourself. So that could be it. But because that's not explicitly brought up, and because there's just so much of this film is about also the T-800 like finding like a sense of humanity and like uncovering and like developing its own consciousness in the film, I think, to me, I read it as the T-800 like gaining a sense of sentience and making a choice. Yeah,
I like that. I agree with that. Because that makes for a better movie. So definitely. So the last couple things I have, just some random miscellaneous notes that we didn't get to. First, throughout majority of the film, Sarah is wearing Kyle Reese's jacket from the first movie. It's that green jacket she's in like a lot of places. I think she typically loses it at the like the not yet Skynet place. Is when like she throws it away. But yeah, through a lot of the movies she has his old jacket. And the last thing, so this was obviously incredibly successful. Still is one of the most recognizable action movies ever. So much so that most of the time when movies do this well, it spans. They usually get a sequel. Terminator 2 did so well. It technically has three. There are 3 versions of Terminator 3, and one weird like amusement park ride that has like a story behind this. But yeah, so there's obviously Terminator 3, where they have the weird Terminator X female robot, and also John Connor's way more annoying in that movie. And then they have the Sarah Connor Chronicles, which is like a TV show, apparently really good. Never watched it because it got canceled and it ends on a cliffhanger. But apparently everyone's like, that's really good.
Yeah, I remember hearing something about that too, that like Sarah Connor Chronicles is actually not half bad.
Yeah, it's pretty good, but it ends on a cliffhanger, so probably shouldn't watch it. And then most recently, Terminator Dark Fate. Mixed reviews, to say the least.
We'll find out. Yeah. I stopped watching it to come record this podcast.
Fair enough, yeah.
So
Randy will finish about it and then tweet what he thinks. So follow us on Twitter.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. uh, yeah. So that's Terminator. If it wasn't obvious about like me gushing about this movie, I love this shit. I love this movie. It's like one of my favorites of just like, cause like of course it is. Like it's anyone who's a fan of action movies, like yeah, Terminator 2 is gonna be your favorite. This movie's awesome. And it's like what yeah, I really wish like this is what like Cameron focuses attention on rather than trying to drown his actors in every movie. Which like he's done on like 3 different occasions
But
at this
water.
point. Yeah, but water. He's for whatever reason that man is obsessed with submarines, both in his films and in real life. But that's just like different art debate. But I mean, nothing could take away from this movie. For every time I see behind the scenes, or every time I get a random excuse to like watch Terminator 2 again, I'm always like, fuck yeah, this movie rocks. 10 out of 10 easily for me. But I'll admit a lot of it's probably nostalgia. But like also this movie fucking rocks. So, yeah, what closing thoughts from either of you, Seth?
Yeah, I think I really like this film. It's that you could definitely see why it's heralded so much as like one of the best action movies of all time. And I think it's because um on top of it as being like a technical masterpiece really because it's finding that weird era in like the 80s and 90s where we were just starting to really use a lot of CGI, and it's using it in very tactful ways. I know a lot of people hyper fixate on the practical effects, which are phenomenal in this film, like hands down, like just everything about it is just great, whether it's the chase sequences or whether it's like things like Arnold ripping his skin and you see like the arm underneath. The the practical is good, but I also think that there's a good marriage of like the new technology, like the CGI, which weirdly fits with the themes of like these films of like past and present, past and future kind of colliding. And I think it's almost funny that like this movie about time traveling cyborgs is also about like kind of the future of special effects and sort of the past coming together. So I find it kind of poetic in that sense.
Yeah.
But on top of it, on top of all that, it's just also happens to be a damned good movie. Like I think like there like it's a story that's like 2 hours fly by really quickly, and it is just like it makes very good Spartan use of like its characters. It never felt like a character was ever like a character or a moment was ever wasted. Like it's either leading up to a really cool action sequence, or it is leading up to a good character moment, or you're learning something about the world. None of this film felt wasted.
Yeah.
I definitely understand why it gets the praise it does, and honestly, it absolutely deserves it.
Yeah, this movie is exactly as long and as short as it could need. Like I talked a lot about like the extended version where like it shows some kind of like behind the scenes stuff. But like really it kind of like there's a reason that it's like out because the movie doesn't need to show you that the T800 malfunction. You can infer that yourself, and like it's real. A lot of people can see it as like dumb fun, but it actually is like a really smart movie, and I think it stays for just as long as it needs to. And like I can't think of a single scene in this movie where I'm like, yeah, that could be shorter, that could be cut off, or that doesn't need to be there. Like no, everything needs to stay. Randy, do you widely disagree with us? Do you hate this movie?
No, it's a fantastic movie. I mean,
Yeah.
like I hadn't watched Terminator 2 in probably like 6 years or so. So it was really nice to come back to it after like not watching it for so long, and like it got me jazzed enough to like immediately after I finished T2, I was like, I want to watch another Terminator movie,
Yeah.
and I was like, all right, T3, which one? I guess Dark Fate. It's going.
I'd rather go original T3 versus Dark Fate, but you do you, man. You tell us what you think.
I'll tweet it out on the Fresh account later.
Yeah, do that. And also, at some point, if you guys really want some more Terminator, new anime's pretty good. It's alright. I need to actually watch it. I've seen like the first like 2 episodes. I'm like, this is fine. This is good. It's got a cool art style. But I believe that is everything we have to say about Terminator 2 Judgment Day. Unless you guys have anything else that we missed out on.
All I'm gonna say is Miles Dyson is like the secret goat of this film. I gotta give props for just taking a bullet, seeing his family's life get in danger and still trying to like protect them. Learn that he is the architect of the apocalypse, and then is immediately like everything has to go.
How do we solve this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This.
Props that dude, and also the fact that I think he's like he's an unsung hero. He sacrifices his own life, and I imagine region-wise, because he knows if all of this comes to pass, there is no future for his family. So he sacrifices everything, his life and his life's work to make sure this all happens. And even after he got gunned down by like those police officers, he still gave them time to get out before he blew the whole thing to Kingdom Come. So, yeah, dude's a fucking baller.
Yeah. Almost as cool as that one redhead ginger kid that lied to a cop. Like a true hero. Lie to police kids. Alright, anyway, let's get on to our fresh picks. Randy, what have you been playing, watching, or listening to when we're not recording this podcast?
So, I was, listening to a song kind of at the start of the week, and like it keeps coming back into my head a little bit. It's new Kesha song. So those of you who remember Kesha when she was like mega big, like what was that, 20?
No one remembers her, Randy. Who is this Kesha?
Is she not big anymore?
Yeah, I was like, at what point did Kesha drop off?
Not so much. I feel like not so much recently.
I mean, to be fair, like I guess there's more of like the
there's waves.
The new hotness or whatever you want to put it.
Like yes,
I mean there was a time there where she put out an album in 2012, and then there wasn't anything till about 2017. So a couple of years.
Yeah, because she was touring.
Fair.
Because she just went on tours because that album was making her money.
Anyway.
The Kesha song, talk about it.
Yeah, it's a new song called Joyride. And it's, I mean, like some of her other songs. It's just about like going out, partying, and being like, I'm out here to party, get dick, and yeah, I'm rich and famous, and like I'm allowed to act like this, like because I've worked my ass off, and like it's just fun. Yeah. That's all. Nice. Okay. So if you want to have want to listen to a song while you're getting ready to go out to the club or something, Joyride by Kesha.
It is a good song. I have listened to it as well. It's a good song. It's a good poppy song. All right, Seth. What have you been playing, watching, or listening to?
So I have been listening a lot to MF Doom. He is was a, and you guys might have heard of him. MF Doom, is like was a British American rapper, and basically kind of his shtick is he is a super villain rapper. His part of his name comes from Doctor Doom from like Marvel Comics, and so part of his like iconography is he wears a metal mask, which is really cool, like kind of reminiscent of Doctor Doom, and the dude is just such a character. I love like his attitude and like what he brings to like rap music in terms of like this stream of consciousness kind of like rapping style, where he's just like, it's like a machine gun of like all kinds of like different verses, but when you listen to it, it makes sense, and he's infusing a lot of good like wordplay in there too. It's just so fun to listen to this guy. Admittedly, I'm not a person who listens to a lot of rap, some, but not a lot. And I think the dude is just straight up like a poet. Like he is just like weaving in these verses that are just so fucking good. And in particular, the album I've been listening to is probably the one I think most people know him for, which is Operation Doomsday. It's such a good, like, yeah. There's only one beer left.
Yeah.
Look, let's see. Is that? Hold on. Was that food or is
I'll be
that?
honest, all his songs are like backwards in my head, so I don't know which one's on which albums. But I just know that's
So
like
I
his
think-
most iconic line.
Yeah, there's only one beer left. Rappers in our ears screaming
Yeah.
like we're deaf. Like yeah, like that is in that. I'm pretty sure that's food. I think that's food.
Yeah.
But like Operation Doomsday is like really cool. I love the cover art of it because it's basically him in a very comic book style on there with like the microphone, and it's just so good. Obviously, if you want a starting point, just listen to the namesake of the album, Doomsday. Probably, I want to say that might be his most popular song. I'm not entirely sure, but it's just so good. I also love that he's like a really good like rapper, and he's also like bringing a lot of his own little like nerd shit into it. That's very fun. Almost all the songs on Operation Doomsday samples like sound bites from like cartoons, in particular like Hanna-Barbera cartoons, like the Fantastic Four cartoon. Of course, it's sampling the Fantastic Four one because I swear he's just like watching the series. He was watching the series, scanning for any time they say Doom, and he just takes that and then so it's like throws it into the fucking song. So it's just fun. I think it's just so much fun. I think like what I love about his songs too is I love to listen to them over and over and over because not only do they have like a really good beat to it and really good like lyrics, but I always feel like every time I listen to a song, I walk away with something new from it. Like a new piece of like a new line or something that I didn't catch the first time. And it just like the guy just basically just owns up to like he just owns up this like persona so well. And like he's basically like, yeah, like I'm a rapper, but I'm also into this nerd shit, and I'm gonna combine it, and like and he just does it so well. One of the funny things too is like he also has multiple rap personas. One of them is, of course, I would like this. One of his rap personas, King Ghidorah, which is a reference to King Ghidorah. He was actually part of a rap group.
This guy. I figured.
Yeah,
he has a Godzilla reference.
Yeah, more than one, because like he was part of a group called Monster Island Czars, which is very fun. Where they did like collabs and songs like that, and we went by King Ghidorah. What I love is he does these like quote unquote featuring or shout out collabs with King Ghidorah, even though it's the same person.
Yeah, it's him.
So he's like basically propping himself up, which I fucking love. So yeah, songs I'd recommend definitely is Doomsday, obviously, Rhymes Like Dimes. It has one of my favorite endings to a song just because of how goofy it is, because it's literally this guy, DJ Cucumber Slice, where he's like, how are you supposed to end rap albums? I don't know. And he starts rapping out like food names like applesauce, buttery biscuits. It's like the dude just does such a good job with his like music. So overall, yeah, I recommend even if you're not into like hip hop or rap music, I completely recommend that you check out any stuff from MF Doom. Sadly, he passed away in 2020.
On the anniversary,
but
he passed away on Halloween, October 31st.
Yeah, the very end of October, which is funnily enough, a lot of people go back to probably where a lot of people have heard him from is he is the rapper on November Has Come on Gorillaz Demon Days. That's him.
I love that. I love that album. I love it.
Yeah, and obviously, Demon Days is a collab with so many different artists. Yeah. But like obviously MF Doom's whole vibe fits so well with the Gorillaz, and November Has Come is an excellent song. And it's kind of sad that like, you know, like he died right before November, and Yeah. So, but either way, great stuff. Highly recommend it. Easily now, like, not saying that there was much competition, admittedly, but easily my favorite rapper. Period is MF Doom.
All right. Well, definitely gonna listen to them. I had a different recommendation originally, but I didn't realize you both had music picks, so I'm also gonna do a music pick because that's fun. Um, and I think Randy, I think I showed this artist to you, or at least I showed a couple of her songs. But he's not as known, but it's Sammy Ray and the Friends. And it's not really pop. It is more like it's like modern jazz a lot of the times. It's a very like it's very heavy saxophones and like solos and very like almost old timey like way she sings. I've been like obsessed with her ever since like randomly I was just like on a day list, just like a random playlist generated by Spotify, and I heard "Talk It Up," which is her most viewed song, and it like from one of her newer albums, and I was like, "This is awesome! This song is great!" And I just looked at and just went in a deep dive, and I was like, "These guys don't miss. They just hit after hit." So I've been like listening to them for very short time now, but like a lot of times I'm like, I just want to keep going back to them. And they do have a new album. I just found out when I looked at them on Spotify, coming out in 12 days. Something for everybody. So keep an eye out for that, especially if you're in the mood for a bit more jazzy, a bit more fun, something different than a lot of things. And I love that all of us kind of, because I feel like a lot of times anytime we talk about music, it's rock or metal, which again, like I love, and I love alt rock. Especially me and Ray talked about. I love that we all kind of went more to like hip hop, like, and like modern music. I love that. That's fun. So yeah, Sammy, Ray, and the Friends. Definitely check them out. I think
Okay, that sounds like really cool.
yeah, but that is about everything. I want to thank Randy for coming on talking about killer robots. All right, thanks, Randy. And I want to thank Seth.
I said definitely. It was fun.
I just did not. He did not pick up on the mic. I did not hear that. He was just silent.
Well,
All right, and
Ripperino.
there you go. And Seth, thank you for coming on and hanging out with us.
No problem.
Yeah, and the most important people, thank you, lovely people, for watching or listening to this podcast. Continue to support. We will continue to make stuff. So thank you all, and stay safe out there.